or the victims of violence. They tend to forget that often we are those victims, those survivors of violence too. The first shooting I witnessed was by a uniformed security guard. I was 13 years old. He was employed by Global Security Services, a company founded by a former Missouri police chief who was later convicted of homicide. The former chief managed to secure multi-million-dollar contracts in an embezzlement scheme to provide armed private officers at almost all of St. Louis's city-owned properties, including my public neighborhood recreation center. The armed guards replaced the city police. I was teaching my sister, Courtney, who was 9, how to shoot free throws at the rec center when the guard stormed in alongside the court, drew his weapon, and shot his cousin in the arm. Courtney and I hid in the locker room for hours afterward. I thought the guard was angry that his cousin skipped a sign-in sheet, but the victim only told the police the shooting had started as an argument over something stupid. Like the boy at the rec center who was shot by the private guard, most victims of law enforcement violence survive. No hashtags or protests or fires for the wounded, assaulted, and intimidated. In 2020, Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin pinned George Floyd to the concrete as he hollered that he could not breathe. Floyd screamed. He screamed for his mother. He screamed for his breath, for his life, until he died 9 minutes later. Calls for justice quickly ensued. I often wonder, what if the cop who killed George Floyd had kneeled on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds instead of 9 minutes? Floyd would have lived to be arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned for allegedly attempting to use a counterfeit $20 bill. Is that justice? I did not think so. Too often, the public calls for justice when Black people are killed by the police and ignore the daily injustice if the victims would have lived. I was surprised by what followed next. Unlike the Black Lives Matter calls 6 years prior, protesters were shouting, "Defund the police." Abolition was entering into the mainstream. Initially, the notion of police abolition repulsed me. The idea seemed like it was created by white activists who did not know the violence that I knew, that I have felt. At the time, I considered abolition to be pejoratively utopic. I'd seen too much sexual violence and had buried too many friends to consider getting rid of the police in St. Louis, let alone across the nation. I still lose people to violence. Sapphire, John, Greg, Brianna, Monty, Corey, Christopher, Jarrell. Sometimes I reread our text messages to laugh again and cry. But over time, I came to realize that, in reality, the police were a placebo. Calling them felt like something, as the legal scholar Michelle Alexander explains, and something feels like everything when your other option is nothing. Police couldn't do what we really needed. They could not heal relationships or provide jobs. They did not interrupt violence. They escalated it. We were usually afraid when we called. When the cops arrived, I was silenced, threatened with detention, or removed from my home. Today, more than 15 years later, St. Louis has more police per capita than most cities in the U.S. My old neighborhood still lacks quality food, employment, schools, health care, and air, all of which increases the risk of violence and our reliance on police. And instead of improving the quality of the neighborhood, St. Louis, which has the highest rate of killings by police among the largest cities in the U.S., spends more money on police. Yet I feared letting go. I thought we needed them. I thought they just needed to be reformed. Until August 9th, 2014, when police officer Darren Wilson killed Michael Brown in Ferguson.